Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, guys. Hello. And this is just a normal mic test. Is this audio clear enough? At least it's audible. I can say that. I think it's working fine, although I would love to hear someone from the chat confirming it's clear. Sounding and good evening, Raghu. Audio is fine. Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. Let me just check a few things here before we proceed. So, before we proceed this webinar, let me give you a formal what do you call introduction here. My name is Nirav. I'm the admin owner of 50 Eyes market analysis website and YouTube channel. And this is the series of weekly webinars that we conduct called Trading Opportunities. Currently, we are conducting the turn off the audio for this. Yes, so as I was saying, currently we are conducting the 173rd weekly trading opportunities webinar, and yes, hello everyone. This message from Joe. So, right, Joe, how's the audio and the visuals? I can see some people are online here, but the participation is lesser. Anyways, so as I was saying, we are conducting the 173rd edition today, and in the past 172 webinars, 171 webinars, we have captured a total of 420, not 20, 428 trades, I think. Yes, that's the number. Total of 428 trades. Here we seem to be having a technical issue. Just give me a moment. All right, guys, the issue has been fixed now, so let's proceed with the webinar. All right, I won't be wasting any further time, and let's just start off with the quick discussion on Euro USD, which is the first chart we'll be analyzing this evening. And of course, there was no webinar last weekend. I have been running busy setting up my local office, public office, and that's why I have been running quite busy these days. Anyways, that being said, hopefully we are still live. Let me check the feed here. It does look like we are still live. Anyways, so as I was saying, first of all, we'll check the chart of Euro USD, and then we will. First of all, we'll check what we said in the last webinar or the last public broadcast, and then we will discuss the actual wave count and analysis. So here is the last webinar's recording as is available to us and to you as well. Let's check what was being said about the chart of Euro. So as you can see here, we are looking at the last webinar discussion, and we were expecting sideways movement roughly within this boxed yellow range, and then some upside movement. Thank you, Raghu, for the confirmation. And after that, we are expecting, after the sideways movement has been completed, we are expecting upside progression to continue in the chart of Euro USD. Price at the time of discussion is around 1.17406. And we were expecting sideways movement until or near about to the range of 1.16. That is the rough outlook. And now let's quickly head over to the actual chart and see how things have progressed since our last discussion. So let me just here it is, the current live chart. Keep in mind the last discussion was on 22nd 8 2025. After that, we had a private webinar for the Slack private group members, and then the next public webinar, which was supposed to be last Friday, was cancelled as I was busy, as I was saying earlier. So the public data we have is of 22nd, somewhere around here. A lot of time has elapsed, but the analysis holds. The analysis was that this can progress into a sideways range, actually a little bit higher. And literally it is progressing in a sideways range. Around 22nd, let me just exactly check it so that there is no discrepancy in our discussions. This box is drawn between the range of 1.14 to 1.20. Let's go back. 1.14. That means that's a higher time frame chart. Let's confirm that we are on daily. Let's move to daily. So this was the analysis, 1.14 to 1.20. Once again, there we go. So the market is within this box range. And again, I'm not sure why I have taken such a big range. Probably we were discussing some higher time frame counts. Anyways, the count suggested we will see some sideways movement or up and then sideways and then go up. It is more or less not very playable. So let's head on to a lower time frame and see how things are progressing there. So anyways, on this lower time frame chart, I'm actually discussing two scenarios here. Let me just give you the point of reference so that we can begin the discussion properly. So point of reference is the starting point for the analysis. For this particular chart, we are starting this analysis from the date 1st of August 2025, price is around 1.139, and from 1st of August 2025, we are seeing a possible diagonal structure in play, and in this particular case, we are expecting let's change the colors for this. There we go. So we are expecting two things here, and both have been represented by different colors here. So that's why I was changing the colors of the arrows. So first count, let's just focus on the CN or the bluish looking count, light blue or whatever you would call. So here we can see that we are expecting that this market is progressing in what you call A, B, and C kind of progression. And in this particular instance, we are expecting that this market is having some more downside remaining before it takes flight to the upside. So here it doesn't, this count does not need much of an explanation. It is basically a simple A up, B sideways, C up. So this is the A leg, this is the B leg sideways, and this is the C leg. In this particular case, this is the A leg. This is the whole sideways movement which we are considering currently as the B leg in play, and then there will be a C leg. Now in this count, the thing to note is that the way B is still in play from here to here, it is still having some downside remaining. And once this B completes, we will then see an upward movement for the C leg. Does not require much of an effort from our end if the B leg is still in play. Then what do you call, conservatively speaking, we can look for shorting opportunities once the market goes below 1.16682. That's the simple setup. As the hypothesis 1 bearish count in white. And at the same time, we have a secondary possibility, which is suggesting that the wave B is possibly complete over here already. That's represented by yellow color. Or perhaps even earlier. Doesn't really matter. The basis remains that the B is complete. The leg B is complete means upside movement can be expected for C, A, B, C. What are we running? Kindergarten school? There it is. The C leg is coming into play and will go up. That's just the basic outlook. Let me know if you guys have any questions before we move further with this analysis and discuss more charts. And concluding the whole thing, H2 is suggesting upside movement. Setup becomes, or we look for bullish plays, or I'll consider bullish plays above 1.1746. Keep in mind this numbers or values, price, whatever you would call it, is coming from this data feed. If you are using another chart with a different data feed, of course, the prices will vary a little bit. These are at the end of the day CFD contracts. And here's a question from Joe in STF. Are we in a WXY correction? So specifically, Joe, Euro chart has become very complex. And I'm not sure if I should be discussing the higher time frames. I have actually avoided this was the higher time frame count. But let's just yes. This much I can say. Anyways, hopefully this much was clear. I'll just clear Joe's doubt. So from this point of reference, we are assuming that we are possibly in a continuation of a correction. So this could be your, or this is your first leg down, second leg up, and next leg down. So since it's in 3 only, it's not an impulse, it's a correction. It's an A down, B up, and C down. And given the fact we are again considering A up, B down, and A up, B down, and C up, this does imply that we could be considering this as a higher time frame count of W up, W down, X up, Y down. That's one possibility. There are other outlooks, but to answer your question very swiftly, yes, we can consider this as a WXY. Not very relevant to the fact of our shorter time frame analysis, but yes, in STF we can consider that. Hopefully that answers your doubt, Joe, and let me know if you guys have any more doubts. If not, just type in yes and understood, clear, or something, and then we'll move over to the chart of crude oil, which seems to be having some good amount of activity and also seems to be requiring an update to the analysis. I'll take a few moments here before I see your responses. You're very welcome, Joe. In that case, and thank you, Raghu, for the confirmation. In that case, let's now head over to the next chart of crude oil. And of course, let's just check what was being said about the chart of crude oil in the last public webinar before we head over and see the current update. Although I have to remind you guys again that the last update was a private discussion and the last public webinar was not held due to reasons mentioned earlier. So this is 3 weeks old analysis. Anyway, the setup was very clear. So let's just go and discuss it. The first setup was that it was possibly heading up for a diagonal. For that, we wanted to see the market sustain above this red trend line or red channel line, let's say. And once the market was above the red channel line, the market sustains means it stays there and possibly tests it before going up as a classical setup. Then we can consider longs. And alternatively, second view was that this market is just heading in a bearish continuation below 61.24. This count becomes invalidated and we look for bearish possibilities. I guess that was the commentary. Yes, that was the invalidation level. Possibly we discuss something more, but I don't have the time to go over every single detail. Let's just head to the actual chart and see how things are going. That discussion was conducted on 22nd of August. Let's see, where is that? Here it is, 22nd of August. So somewhere here we were discussing all that. And since then, the market, let's just draw that channel we were talking about in the last discussion. Here's the channel line we were discussing in the last webinar. Since the market has given a false break, as you can see, by heading over the channel line, then it has gone back inside the channel and then sustained below it. And of course, it did not forget to hit the invalidation level and trigger the bearish count. So what is it really doing? This discussion requires, or this count requires, a serious update. Although, of course, we are covering all that in the private Slack group. And of course, in the last webinar, we have discussed these possibilities in detail, but nothing has been discussed in public so far. So let's just discuss that now. So first of all, here is the updated outlook I am assuming this market is following. And for that, let's just mention the point of reference is the level at 78.352. From 78.3539, whatever this level is, the market has gone down swiftly, and we are assuming that as the first leg, possibly the correction wave 2, of course, in the upper direction, sideways to bullish, let's just call it. And then after that, we have possibly continuation of the downward movement, a nested impulse, perhaps, who knows, one here, two here, or maybe the two is continuing here as a dot one and a dot two. That's the expectation here, or the bearish count. Let's just call it the H2 count, which is super bearish. Even if the wave 2 is continuing, the up leg will be small, or we expect it to be small and do not expect it to go above the price level of 66.455. So let's just call this as the invalidation level, 66.455. So after this invalidation level has been defined, we now want to see what kind of setups we may have at play. First is that plain and simple, we don't do anything and wait for the market to go low 62.152 and then perhaps consider shorting this market That's just a consideration for bearish movement below 60.152 in accordance with the nested impulse count. Of course, 2 may be here and not here, in which case it can just fall from here. So you get the idea. H2 is basically suggesting bearish movement and nothing is unique to it other than that. Hopefully you guys are clear on this. Let me know with a quick yes or no before I discuss things further. Hello Marco, one of our private Slack group members. Nice to see you back again in the live webinars. And thank you Raghu for the confirmation. So what about you, Joe, Marco? Hopefully you guys are also able to follow along with the analysis so far on crude oil. Now let's go and discuss the other outlook, which is kind of not in alignment with our H2 count. Now this is not a precise looking count, but we are just following it along so far. That's good to know, Joe. So we are considering this as again possible progression. I mean, everything is possible in Elliott Wave technologies, but this looks a little bit concerning. So we have to discuss this and consider this as our H1, which is suggesting some downward movement before an upward movement. And what are we having here? We are having a diagonal in play. This is possibly not the best example for a diagonal, and that's why I said I'm not 100% on this. But this is a possibility that cannot be ruled out, and it's counter to our existing analysis. So let's just talk about the structure. First of all, in a diagonal, we will have 5 legs, and the first leg will be here, second will be here, third will be here, so on and so forth. We have the diagonal structure. The characteristic trait of a diagonal structure is that the wave 1 and 4 overlap. So if you extend the wave 1's price territory, you see that the 4 is entering it, and this makes it a diagonal structure. Now, in the fifth leg of the diagonal, we can say that perhaps the fifth is complete here. That possibility does exist, but it's looking quite less likely. Although technically it is possible, because technically the fifth leg generally just goes below the 3. In this case, it has already done that. So you can just call that the fifth is already complete, right? And the next thing is that if the fifth is continuing, which I'm assuming as the main scene scenario, I should say, then we still have the possibility of this downward movement before the upward flight begins. So even in the case of the yellow count, the H1, we have bearish movement, and even in the case of H2, we already do have bearish movement. So we do have a confluence of analyses here. So this is a place where I can look to place swing short trades. Again, keep in mind swing short trades, not scalp shorts here. Scalp shorts, perhaps we can look below this level, but not right now. And right now, the analysis remains to focus on this leg down. So let's just look at it in greater detail and conclude this analysis on crude. And perhaps I'll take a short swing trade before the session closes as well. I mean, why not? This does look quite clear enough. So here is the outlook. If this is the 4, then this is the A down, B up, and then C down for a zigzag structure. And since this is an A down, B up, and C down, we expect the C leg to take out the low of A. And as you can see over here, if you can see, the low of A has not yet been taken out, at least on this chart. So this makes it a possibility for scalp shorts as well, alongside the scalp, what do you call, swing shorts. Stop loss, we will have to be a little bit generous with the stops here. Let's just call it somewhere around 65. A little bit higher than 65 will be better, but 65 point something something. Again, I'm not specifying the exact because we are on this data feed. If you are on different data feed, the prices will vary a little bit. But over here, roughly 65 can serve as a technical stop. Actually, I would personally prefer a little bit above it. That's fine, kind of. That works. So on this data feed, this works as our SL level for the expected swing shorting opportunity. So, but again, as I mentioned, it still remains to be considered if you want to go short on this. That's just the opportunity I'm seeing. I'll possibly do some further analysis once this webinar is over. But as far as the current analysis goes, this does look quite promising, as we have two analyses both pointing in the downward direction. So that's it for this count analysis. Let me know if you guys have any doubts or questions. Again, if you don't have any doubts or questions, just type in understood or clear or something, and we'll move along. All right. Thank you for the confirmation, guys. There, Joe, Raghu. All right. I didn't see that diagonal approach. Well, there are other approaches which I'm even not discussing here. But then again, I'll post them in the Slack private group if need arises. All right, Raghu. That's good to know. In that case, let's not take any further time and quickly head over to our next chart, which will be the chart of gold. Everyone's favorite thing these days. Or not just these days. Since long, long time. So here is the outlook as discussed in our last public webinar. And as you guys already know, in the last public webinar, the discussion was conducted on 22nd of last month. After that, we had a private webinar, and then the next webinar was just not conducted. So anyways, long story short, this public data feed is quite old, but we are just checking it because that's what we do to keep track record of things. Analysis suggests more bearish possibilities. We are expecting bearish, but another possibility is that given that the up move in B is swift, 3405 plus levels will suggest bullishness. Let's see if there is something else. That was the count on 22nd of August. And here is the current data. So let's just very quickly check. There it is, 22nd of August, somewhere over here. This is the leg we were referring to in the webinar, I believe. Yes, that's the one. And 3405 plus levels are long, so there it is, 3405. The market has gone up, so this is a plus one on this analysis on gold. It just hasn't gone up, it has gone up quite a lot. And everybody kind of knows that. I'm pretty sure we discussed some upside targets in one of the last 2-3 webinars. Although I'm not very keen on going back there and finding out what was what. Hello, Manuel, one of our regular YouTube viewers. Nice to see you here. So now coming back to the current data, I'm not very keen on discussing the whole thing. I believe we must have pretty much discussed it in last webinar. If not, then last to last or something like that. We just want to discuss the current feed here, or short term wise, what's the market likely to do. So first of all, I'm assuming that from this point of reference, which is around the price level of 3675, we are possibly seeing a corrective structure in play, and this correction is most likely, not most likely, it does look like it could be a, one second. It does look like it could be a possible flat structure in play, and that's why you can see I have drawn out a rough outlook for the same, although as I can tell you from what I can see right now, this is not necessarily that. It could be one of the many other possible scenarios. Anyways, since this is the expected structure, we can then also go on and comment that perhaps this is the A, perhaps this is the B, and perhaps this is the C. Although, as I said, I'm not very keen on this count either. There is the possibility that this B is still continuing. And actually, I should just possibly draw it on some other chart. Let's see if we have some free area over here. There it is. I can just draw it over here. Right there it is. Here's your point of reference. Here's the A, B, and C for 4. And that basically means this is A down, B up, and C down, and then this is A up, B down. Actually, that's not the A up. It does not have the right look. So I'm just giving you a rough projection of things that can happen here. First is that the gold is still continuing the wave B up, and then there will be a C down and then another leg up. That's one possibility. And the second possibility, let's use the yellow color for it, is suggesting that A is complete here, B is possibly complete here, and then the market is going to head lower for the C leg. So these are the two counts. They are kind of counter to each other's, but the setup for the white count is simple here. H1, let's just call it, is quite simple. We are going to look for longs above 3656. That's the analysis for our gold bullish count. And as you already know, we have two outlooks here. One is the upside view, and the other one is the second view here. 1 second. Let me know, guys, if you have any doubts or questions on this count before we move further with the more analysis. Just let me know if you want to discuss anything on this. If not, just type in understood or clear and we'll move accordingly. Joe is saying no doubt, and Raghu says understood. Well, if that is all clear, I'll just conclude with one last point. We have discussed the setup for bullishness 3656 plus, and while the market does look quite bullish, and it is important to discuss bullish setups in, of course, an upside moving market to remain in alignment with the major trend. It is at the same time noteworthy to note that people are going to book some profits no matter what you think, and that can give us some bearishness or sideways movement. And hence, for H2 yellow, the setup, although we are not discussing right now, what we'll do is push an alert. We already have one around 3631 roughly, and below 3631, we'll look to consider H2 as a more serious contender, or the yellow bearish count as a more serious contender. Till then, we are focused on what we have, and I do possibly have some more data driven. That is the same analysis here, where we are considering H2 as the main setup as well. That's it, guys. So now we'll just head over to discuss the chart of S&P. And of course, before we move forward, forgot to mention that if you are enjoying the content, please kindly do share this content with your friends or colleagues, or anyone you feel like will benefit from this kind of detailed analysis. Of course, if you're liking the content, we do have our own private Slack group for which you can send the inquiries. And probably at this point, I should change the inquiry to direct links, etc. We'll think about it once I have more time. All right, I'm free now, so let's now head over to chart of S&P 500, which is looking very interesting. So as I mentioned earlier, but again, I'm not sure when someone is joining in or watching in this webinar later as a recording. So I'm repeating myself again here that this discussion, which we are checking as a reference, calling it our past discussion, was done on 22nd of August. So quite a time has passed. The webinar after that was a private webinar for the private Slack group members, and the one after that was cancelled. given my busy schedule as I'm setting up my own public office. So considering this old, very old data, we are just taking this reference from S&P. Looks like a short-term trade here. We were considering target 6530, 6580. Let's see if something else is considered. Looks like the main count here. So let's now head over to the actual chart and see how things have progressed. Since 22nd of August, let's just 6473 is the price. Six five three zero is the minimum upside we were expecting. It didn't test the target, and while in direction wise it does seem to be following the arrows, it hasn't done precisely as we expected it to. So it is kind of something that if you are in the markets and constantly observing, then we can say it worked. But for the sake of the technicality of these webinars, and given the fact that you guys, not all of you guys, are able to access my private Slack group, we will consider this analysis as something that is neutral. And now is the time to discuss what's happening right now. So as for what's happening right now, I am assuming 1 hour should be enough, that this market is possibly heading into a diagonal structure. And we are assuming that this diagonal structure is possibly starting from what's this wave 1 up is somewhere till here, 6530. I have assumed that 2 is complete here. We can also assume here, but that's not really necessary because I don't even think this is the main count here. This could be a nested impulse in the other direction, but anyways, that will soon become clear. So right now the main count, or let's just call the count on screen, we are assuming is that we are seeing a possible diagonal in play. Diagonal, as you guys already know, has 5 legs in it, 2 and 4 overlapping. So there is no overlap yet of anything, but then again, wave 4 has not yet formed, so we are not sure about that. That is something to be seen in the future. That's one way of looking at it, and this suggests all bearishness will then turn into possible bullishness. So basically, S&P is looking short-term wise maybe bearish, but overall swing perspective bullish, and that's why I do have open long positions on S&P right now. But there's a secondary view which is suggesting that this market is possibly just heading up as an impulse and not a diagonal, in which case this leg can be very fast and sharp and just go up. We don't have any confirmation or anything about this upward movement, and this is something kind of like wait and watch scenario. But given how S&P has been behaving so far, this will not be out of ordinary. But then again, as I said, I have swing longs currently in play, and that's the Reason we can hold these positions because those are swings, so the stop loss is wide. Technically, you can place the stop around 6517 as well. So with the wide stop loss, we cannot. We do have more holding power basically. As the take or quick take on S&P, if this is the count, then something like this. However, if this is a nested impulse structure, then it could be a 1, it could be a 2 here, and this could be a 3 in play, 4 in play, and 5 in play. So that's the other count I was discussing. Super bullish, and the market just continues going up for now at least. So these are the two plays we are looking at. As I said, we have already entered longs on this counter. So I've discussed the swing perspective and everything else as well. So here is the post. Oh, I can't it load half screen. There it is. Added swing longs with stop loss 6454. Anyways, that's about it for S&P. Let me know if you guys have any doubts or questions. If not, just type in clear understood or something along those lines, and we will then move over to the chart of BTC. And eventually we'll cover the chart of NVIDIA. Hopefully we have time for all that. All right, thank you for the confirmation, guys. In that case, let's just move over and see what's coming or what's clear enough on the chart of BTC. And as always, let's just first check what was being discussed in the last public webinar for this chart before we move over to the current discussion or current live charts discussion, I must say. So when the last public webinar was conducted on 22nd of August, we do seem to be having some bullish bias suggesting more upside. Let's see if there was a trigger, etc. It does seem like the main theme we had see like complete and as a diagonal structure and the market goes up. Price was 116,901. Let's now head over to the live chart and see. It actually continued on our trajectory. Not really as expected, although we have updated it multiple times since this YouTube broadcast was quite old. But then again, we will have to consider the public records anyways. So right now, what we can see quite clearly is that this market does seem to be looking like a corrective structure, A down, B up, and C down. Yes, technically we can do that. So long story short, if the market is in an impulse where this is the one around 123, 190, and let's just call this as the 2 complete here, then this market should just head higher. Although technically it does seem to be demonstrating some weakness, and I'm personally not very strongly agree with the fact that we can just go and enter long positions here. This is more of a wait and watch kind of market. Count wise, yes, we can say that this is heading up for a 3. We can even say that this is possibly the 1.1, let's just call it, and then dot 2 here. And this is the 3 of the 3, but those are all what you call just possibilities. The best case scenario here is to just enter longs with stop loss at around 109,370, or proper conservative stop is at 107,200. That's our take on BTC for now. And while it does look bullish, I've discussed the whole thing in a little bit more detail than normal. Let me know if there is doubt or questions on this counter before we move over to the next chart, or the last chart of NVIDIA for this discussion at least. As always, if everything is clear enough, guys, just type in clear understood or something along those lines. And of course, if you guys are enjoying the content, do not forget to hit the like button, share, and much more importantly, share it with people who are going to watch it, and make it a rule to try and share it with 3 or more people so that we can reach more audience and I can conduct more of these webinars with possibly much more coverage than what we have right now. But again, then again, all that lies in your able hands, guys and girls. So let's do our parts, and that's it. Updated BTC. So Raghu has asked a question about NVIDIA, and let's now head to the chart of NVIDIA. Let's just quickly check what was. Thank you, Raghu, for the confirmation, BTC, and thank you, Joe, as well. So, well, that's good, Raghu, but just don't push in news events and stuff that may count as opinion. And we do not want anyone breaking the rules. Even our own Slack group members should abide by them. But anyways, taking your question on NVIDIA, let's just move forward and see what was being discussed on this chart in our last public webinar. Although, as you guys already know, since you are in the private Slack group, that we do have our private webinar, last month's last webinar. So as far as this count is concerned, we had looked in the past webinar suggesting that straight up movement might be possible, although it could go to 162.9 as that is a support level. Let's see if there is anything else. No, not really. So that was the analysis on this counter of NVIDIA, and downside play 162.9. It can still progress because those are retracement levels for wave 4 circle degree 162.9 and 183.54 plus levels we may look for long. Let's go and check the chart. So here the market has gone lower, but not as low as we expected in our last discussion on NVIDIA. Let me check one more thing very quickly here. That's interesting. The market is going lower, but not taking out or precisely going and touching the levels we were expecting it to. 162.9 almost got touched, but that's just an almost I should say. Let me check one last thing here on the last discussion chart. And fine. So that's the take on NVIDIA. Let's just discuss the count now. As I said, a few things have changed since our last discussion. Let's just check what this current level is and how this market is performing. So first of all, it did go very near to our support level. It does not always have to go exactly to this level and reverse or break it, give false break and then reverse. This is a straightforward case of wave 4, and wave 4 is generally a sideways kind of momentum wave, and in this particular case this is a sideways box, little bit extended to the downside. Then this is the A down, B up and C down case for the wave 4 completion. If that is complete, then as you can see with the pointed arrows, we are looking for longs, and the gap suggests that the bullishness is there, the bullish momentum is there on this counter. Although personally I would say that while the counts are being followed, once the market sustains above this alert level of, let's just say, 183.62, then only we can look to consider long trading opportunities on this counter. So NVIDIA swing longs can still hold. Technical stop can be as low as 149.7, but practically speaking, it should not. We generally do not wish to see it go below 166.67. So that's the take on NVIDIA. Longs, swing longs, if you're already holding, that's the adjusted stop loss. If not, then it is a good looking opportunity, but only above 183.62 plus levels. With that being said, we have at this point in time discussed all the charts we discuss in these webinars, and those of you who stayed till the very end, thank you guys for your awesome participation. To everyone who commented and answered whatever was asked and participated properly with rules and guidelines, thank you for all that as well. And lastly, do not forget to hit the like button and share this content with as many of your friends and colleagues as you can, and that will allow us to host more of these webinars and cover all more further instruments. Right. That being said, I'll say that just type in understood or clear if you understood our last discussion on NVIDIA. If not, just type in the question. And after that, we'll just close the webinar because we have literally discussed all the major instruments and things that we generally do discuss in these webinars. Joe is saying thank you so much for today's detailed analysis on the markets. Thanks. You very helpful. You're very much welcome, Joe, one of our private Slack group members. Raghu is clear on NVIDIA, his favorite stocks most likely. That's good to know, Raghu. And Marco says, thank you, Nirav. Hi, everyone. Hello, Marco, and thank you for the comment. Hopefully, you enjoyed the webinar and wonderful answers. Thank you, Nirav. Thank you, Raghu, for the comment. Of course, do not forget to share the content, Raghu. That immensely helps us. Well, I believe we have now reached the final point for this webinar. So let's just close the session here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care and bye.